That's just war. It's who can endure more suck before the other one gives up.
I'm guessing Papa Lannister can endure and inflict a lot of suck.
Okay. Well, there's that opinion.
Arya. The road was little more than 2 ruts through the weeds. The good part was, with so little traffic, there'd be no one to point the finger and say which way they'd gone. The human flood that had flowed down the King's Road was only a trickle here. The bad part was, the road wound back and forth like a snake, tangling with even smaller trails and sometimes seeming to vanish entirely, only to reappear half a league further on when they'd all but given up hope. Arya hated it. The land was gentle enough, rolling hills and terraced fields interspersed with meadows and woodlands and little valleys where willows crowded close to shallow streams. Even so, the path was so narrow and crooked that their pace had dropped to a crawl. It was the wagons that slowed them, lumbering along, axles creaking under the weight of their heavy loads. A dozen times a day they had to stop to free a wheel that had got stuck in a rut, or double up the teams so to climb a muddy slope. Once, in the middle of a dense stand of oak, they came face to face with 3 men pulling a load of firewood in an ox cart, with no way for either to get round. They had been nothing for it but to wait while the foresters unhitched their ox, led him through the trees, spun the cart, hitched the ox back up again, and started back the way they'd come. The ox was even slower than the wagons, so that day they had hardly got anywhere at all. Arya couldn't help looking over her shoulder, wondering when the gold cloaks would catch them. At night she woke at every noise to grab for Needle's hilt. They never made camp without putting out sentries now, but Arya didn't trust them, especially the orphan boys. They might have done well enough in the alleys of King's Landing, but out here they were lost. When she was being quiet as a shadow, she could sneak past all of them, flitting out by starlight to make her water into the woods where no one could see. Once, when Lommy Greenhands had the watch, she shimmied up an oak and moved from tree to tree until she was right above his head, and he never saw a thing. She would have jumped down on top of him, but she knew his scream would wake the whole camp, and Yoren might take a stick to her again. Lommy and the other orphans all treated the bull like someone special now because the queen wanted his head, though he would have none of it. "I never did nothing to no queen," he said angrily. "I did my work is all. Bellows and tongs and fetch and carry. I was supposed to be an armourer, and one day Maester Mott says I got to go join the Night's Watch, and that's all I know." Then he'd go off to polish his helm. It was a beautiful helm, rounded and curved with a slit visor and 2 great metal bull's horns. Arya would watch him polish the metal with an oilcloth, shining it so bright you could see the flames of the cook fire reflected in the steel. Yet he never actually put it on his head. "I bet he's that traitor's bastard," Lommy said one night, in a hushed voice so Gendry couldn't hear. "The Wolf Lord, the one they nicked on Baelor's steps." "He is not," Arya declared. "My father only had one bastard, and that's Jon." She walked off into the trees, wishing she could just saddle her horse and ride home. She was a good horse, a chestnut mare with a white blaze on her forehead, and Arya had always been a good rider. She could gallop off and never see any of them unless she wanted to. Only then she'd have no one to scout ahead of her, or watch behind, or stand guard while she napped, and when the gold cloaks caught her, she'd be all alone. It was safer to stay with Yoren and the others. "We're not far from the God's Eye," the Black Brother said one morning. "The King's Road won't be safe till we're across the Trident, so we'll come up round the lake along the western shore. They're not like to look for us there." At the next spot where 2 ruts cut across each other, he turned the wagons west. Here farmland gave way to forest. The villages and holdfasts were smaller and farther apart, the hills higher and the valleys deeper. Food grew harder to come by. In the city, Yoren had loaded up the wagons with salt fish, hard bread, lard, turnips, sacks of beans and barley, and wheels of yellow cheese, but every bite of it had been eaten. Forced to live off the land, Yoren turned to Koss and Kurz, who'd been taken as poachers. He would send them ahead of the column into the woods, and come dusk they'd be back with a deer slung between them on a pole, or a brace of quail swinging from their belts. The younger boys would set to picking blackberries along the road, or climbing fences to fill a sack with apples if they happened upon an orchard. Arya was a skilled climber and a fast picker, and she liked to go off by herself. One day she came across a rabbit purely by happenstance. It was brown and fat, with long ears and a twitchy nose. Rabbits ran faster than cats, but they couldn't climb trees half so well. She whacked it with her stick and grabbed it by its ears, and Yoren stewed it with some mushrooms and wild onions. Arya was given a whole leg, since it was her rabbit. She shared it with Gendry. The rest of them each got a spoonful, even the 3 in manacles. Jack and Hagar thanked her politely for the treat, and Biter licked the grease off his dirty fingers with a blissful look, but Rorge, the noseless one, only laughed and said, "There's a hunter now, lumpy-faced, lumpy-head rabbit killer." Outside a holdfast called Briarwhite, some field hands surrounded them in a cornfield, demanding coin for the ears they'd taken. Yoren eyed their sides and tossed them a few coppers. "Time was, a man in black was feasted from dawn to Winterfell, and even high lords called it an honour to shelter him under their roofs," he said bitterly. "Now cravens like you want hard coin for a bit of wormy apple," he spat. "It's sweet corn better'n a stinking old blackbird like you deserves," one of them answered roughly. "You get out of our field now and take these sneaks and stabbers with you, or we'll stake you up in a corn to scare the other crows away." They roasted the sweet corn in the husk that night, turning the ears with long forked sticks, and ate it hot right off the cob. Arya thought it tasted wonderful, but Yoren was too angry to eat. A cloud seemed to hang over him, ragged and black as his cloak. He paced about camp restlessly, muttering to himself. The next day Koss came racing back to warn Yoren of a camp ahead. 20 or 30 men in mail and half-elms," he said. "Some of 'em are cut up bad, one's dying from the sound of him. With all the noise he was making I got up right close. They got spears and shields, but only one horse, and I think that's lame. I think they've been here for a while from the stink of the place." "See a banner?" "Spotted tree cat, yellow and black on a mud-brown field." Yoren folded a sour leaf into his mouth and chewed. "Can't say," he admitted. "Might be one side, might be the other. If they're hurt that bad, likely they'll take our mounts, no matter who they are. Might be they'd take more than that. I believe we'll go wide round 'em." It took them miles out of their way and cost them 2 days at least, but the old man said it was cheap at that price. "You'll have time enough on the wall. The rest of your lives, more like. Seems to me there's no rush to get there." Arya saw men guarding the fields more and more when they turned north again. Often they stood silently beside the road, giving a cold eye to anyone who passed. Elsewhere they patrolled on horses, riding their fence lines with axes strapped to their saddles. At one place she spotted a man perched up in a dead tree, with a bow in his hand and a quiver hanging from the branch beside him. The moment he spied them, he notched an arrow to his bowstring and never looked away until the last wagon was out of sight. All the while Yoren cursed. "Him and his tree. Let's see how well he likes it up there when the others come to take him. He'll scream for the watch then, that he will." A day later Dobber spied a red glow against the evening sky. "Either this road went and turned again, or that sun's setting in the north." Yoren climbed a rise to get a better look. "Fire," he announced. He licked a thumb and held it up. "Wind should blow it away from us. Still bears watching." And watch it they did. As the world darkened, the fire seemed to grow brighter and brighter until it looked as though the whole north were ablaze. From time to time they could even smell the smoke, though the wind held steady and the flames never got any closer. By dawn the fire had burned itself out, but none of them slept well that night. It was midday when they arrived at the place where the village had been. The fields were a charred desolation for miles around, the houses blackened shells. The carcasses of burnt and butchered animals dotted the ground, under living blankets of carrion crows that rose, cawing furiously when disturbed. Smoke still drifted from inside the holdfast. Its timber palisade looked strong from afar, but had not proved strong enough. Riding out from the wagons on her horse, Arya saw burnt bodies impaled on sharpened stakes atop the walls, their hands drawn up tight in front of their faces, as if to fight off the flames that had consumed them. Yoren called a halt when they were still some distance off, and told Arya and the other boys to guard the wagons while he and Murch and Cutjack went forward on foot. A flock of ravens rose from inside the walls when they climbed through the broken gate, and the caged ravens in their wagons called out to them with quawks and raucous shrieks. "Should we go in after them?" Arya asked Gendry after Yoren and the others had been gone a long time. Yoren said wait. Gendry's voice sounded hollow. When Arya turned to look, she saw he was wearing his helm, all shiny steel and great curving horns. When they finally returned, Yoren had a little girl in his arms, and Murch and Cutjack were carrying a woman in a sling made of old torn quilt. The girl was no older than 2, and she cried all the time, a whimpery sound, like something was caught in her throat. Either she couldn't talk yet, or had forgotten how. The woman's right arm ended in a bloody stump at her elbow, and her eyes didn't seem to see anything, even when she was looking right at it. She talked, but she only said one thing. "Please," she cried over and over. "Please, please." Rorge thought that was funny. He laughed through the hole in his face where his nose had been, and Biter started laughing too, until Murch cursed them and told them to shut up. Yoren had them fix the woman a place in the back of a wagon. "Be quick about it," he said. "Come dark, there'll be wolves here and worse." "Oh, I'm scared," Hot Pie murmured when he saw the one-armed woman thrashing in the wagon. "Me too," Arya confessed. He squeezed her shoulder. "I never truly kicked no boy to death, Harry. I just sold my mommy's pies is all." Arya rode as far ahead of the wagons as she dared, so she wouldn't have to hear the little girl crying, or the woman whisper, "Please." She remembered a story old Nan had told once, about a man imprisoned in a dark castle by evil giants. He was very brave and smart, and he tricked the giants and escaped, but no sooner was he outside the castle than the others took him and drank his red-hot blood. Now she knew how he must have felt. The one-armed woman died at evenfall. Gendry and Cutjack dug her a grave on a hillside beside a weeping willow. When the wind blew, Arya thought she could hear the long trailing branches whispering, "Please, please, please." The little hairs on the back of her neck rose and she almost ran from the gravesite. "No fire tonight," Yoren told them. Supper was a handful of wild radishes Koss found, a cup of dry beans, water from a nearby brook. The water had a funny taste to it, and Lommy told them it was the taste of bodies rotting somewhere upstream. Hot Pie would have hit him if old Rayson hadn't pulled them apart. Arya drank too much water, just to fill her belly with something. She never thought she'd be able to sleep, yet somehow she did. When she woke, it was pitch black and her bladder was full to bursting. Sleepers huddled all round her, wrapped in blankets and cloaks. Arya found Needle, stood, listened. She heard the soft footsteps of a sentry, men turning in restless sleep, Rorge's rattling snores, and the queer hissing sound that Biter made when he slept. From a different wagon came the steady rhythmic scrape of steel on stone as Yoren sat, chewing sour leaf and sharpening the edge of his dirk. Hot Pie was one of the boys on watch. "Where are you going?" he asked when he saw Arya heading for the trees. Arya waved vaguely at the woods. "No, you're not," Hot Pie said. He'd gotten bolder again now that he had a sword at his belt, even though it was just a short sword and he handled it like a cleaver. "The old man sent for everyone to stay close tonight." "I need to make water," Arya explained. "Well, use that tree right there," he pointed. "You don't know what's out there, Ari. I heard wolves before." Yoren wouldn't like it if she fought with him. She tried to look afraid. "Wolves? For sure. I heard," he assured her. "I don't think I need to go after all." She went back to her blanket and pretended to sleep until she heard Hot Pie's footsteps going away. Then she rolled over and slipped off into the woods on the other side of camp, quiet as a shadow. There were sentries out this way too, but Arya had no trouble avoiding them. Just to make sure, she went out twice as far as usual. When she was sure there was no one near, She skinned down her breeches and squatted to do her business. She was making water, her clothing tangled about her ankles, when she heard rustling from under the trees. "Hot Pie," she thought in panic. "He followed me." Then she saw the eyes shining out from the wood, bright with reflected moonlight. Her belly clenched tight as she grabbed for needle, not caring if she pissed herself, counting eyes. 2, 4, 8, 12. A whole pack. One of them came padding out from under the trees. He stared at her and bared his teeth, and all she could think was how stupid she'd been, and how Hot Pie would gloat when they found her half-eaten body the next morning. But the wolf turned and raced back into the darkness, and quick as that the eyes were gone. Trembling, she cleaned herself and laced up, and followed a distant scraping sound back to camp and to Yoren. Arya climbed into the wagon beside him, shaking. "Wolves," she whispered hoarsely. In the woods." "Aye, they would be." He never looked at her. "They scared me." "Did they?" he spat. "Seems your kind was rather fond of wolves." "Nymeria was a direwolf." Arya hugged herself. "That's different. Anyhow, she's gone. Jory and I threw rocks at her until she ran off, or else the Queen would have killed her." It made her sad to talk about it. "I bet if she'd have been in the city, she wouldn't have let them cut off father's head."
"Orphan boys got no fathers,"
Yoren said.
"Or did you forget that?"
The sour leaf had turned his spit red, so it looked like his mouth was bleeding.
"The only wolves we got to fear are the ones who wear manskin, like those who done that for the village."
"I wish I was home," she said miserably. She tried so hard to be brave, to be fierce as a wolverine and all, but sometimes she felt like she was just a little girl after all. The black brother peeled a fresh sour leaf from the bale in the wagon and stuffed it into his mouth.
"Might be I should have left you where you were. I should have left you where I found you, boy. All of you. Safer in the city, seems to me."
"I don't care. I want to go home."
"Been bringing men to the wall for close on 30 years.
Froth shone on Yoren's lips like bubbles of blood.
"All that time I only lost 3. Old man died of fever, city boy got snake bit taking a shit, and one fool tried to kill me in my sleep and got a red smile for his trouble."
He drew the dirk across his throat to show her.
3 in 30 years.
He spat out the old sour leaf.
"A ship now might have been wiser. No chance of finding more men on the way, but still, clever man, he'd go by ship. But me, 30 years I've been taking this King's Road."
He sheathed his dirk.
"Go to sleep, boy. Hear me?"
She did try. Yet as she lay under her thin blanket, she could hear the wolves howling. And another sound, fainter, no more than a whisper on the wind, that might have been screams.
Arya, the wolf whisperer.
Apparently.
Either that or they just weren't that hungry. Kind of reminds me of when we were in Hawaii. You said you peed in the water and the sharks got closer. She went out, she peed, and the wolves came closer.
See? That's what it was.
All predators are the same.
Hey, listen, if you smell something, you're going to check it out.
Yeah, but it's like pee. It's yucky.
Yeah, but maybe you're peeing because you're scared.
Yeah, that's true, maybe. That's how they smell fear. That's the smell of fear. Pee.
It's the pee smell.
I'm also noticing kind of a trend in Arya's chapters. I can't really talk about dealing with her themes.
Not
because
yet.
it could spoil some things.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm noticing something. I can't wait to talk about it.
Oh,
but I'm just gonna
okay.
I'm just gonna throw it out there just so anyone else watching it can maybe think, did they see anything that's happening, trending across Arya chapters?
Put it in the comments
if Arya's story.
Put it in the comments if you think you've got it figured out.
Other than that,
unless you've read the books already and you're gonna spoil it for everyone. But what do you guys think is the trend going on in Arya's story? Let us know.
Yeah, that was really about it. We just kind of caught up with the gang, like how everything's going going on.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there's awful things going on the King's Road. They're being a little bit more protective now, a little bit safer.
But it's also taking longer, and Arya really wants to go home.
Starting to sound like Sansa, Arya. Calm down.
Well, she's a little bit more maybe vulnerable in this chapter. The last few, she's been pretty tough for the
Yeah.
most part. She's been pretty resilient, and then in this chapter, she gets pretty vulnerable, and she's just like, I just want to go home.
Mm-hmm. We learned that Yoren's been doing this for 30 years.
30 years taking dudes up to the wall and never had a problem.
Until now.
Till now.
Till Arya showed up.
Is it Arya or is it the Lannisters?
Or is it Gendry?
Or is it Gendry? Who has no idea why the queen is after him. He's just like, I was just being a blacksmith, minding my own business, and then I had to leave. And it sucked. He's not too happy about it, I don't think. He's not too thrilled about that.
And
isn't it funny, though, if he goes up to the wall to be a blacksmith, right? Because I'm assuming that's what he'll do when he gets to the wall.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be funny that he would be the blacksmith with the guy who used to be the blacksmith for House Baratheon?
Yeah, that would be pretty interesting. You look familiar.
You look just like someone I used to know.
Nah, couldn't be.
That would just be great.
It would. And then Eddard's son alongside Robert's son.
Doing stuff on the wall, fighting zombies. After the fall. 'Cause it'll be winter time.
All right, I'm just going to stop your embarrassment there.
We get more destruction, more war is bad. Martin really wants to hammer that home. That war sucks.
More Arya getting very defensive about Jon Snow.
Yeah,
He is not the bastard. Eddard Stark only had one bastard. He was Jon Snow. And Jon Snow will remind you every chance he gets.
He's a bastard. In case you haven't forgotten. Just for the record.
Yeah.
He's
a bastard.
Do I sense a little bit of a commiseration or potential maybe friendship developing between Arya and Hot Pie?
Yeah, I think so.
Hot Pie's kind of calmed down a little bit.
Yeah, everyone kind of let their guard down a little bit. Hot Pie even admitted he never kicked a kid to death.
Shocker. It was kind of sad that he just goes, I never kicked a kid to death. I just sold my mommy's pies. It was sad. He's probably all angry and stuff because he misses his mama.
They don't have sad stories, though.
I know. Can I be sad about all of them?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, probably Biter doesn't have too sad of a story.
I bet he does. You don't turn out like that, living in the lap of love and happiness.
Well, no.
I don't think. I mean,
maybe he did. Maybe he had a loving, caring family and he ate them.
Well, yeah, that's true.
You never know about people. Maybe, do you think that's what happened to the other guy's nose?
Biter ate it?
Yeah.
Maybe.
They've been in that cell too long.
Fan theory, Biter ate Roge's nose.
That's how it happened.
When we did see the wolves, I was kind of almost hoping for maybe we'd get to see Nymeria again and find out what happened to her, because Arya even brings her up.
Yeah.
But
I was kind of hoping it'd be Nymeria.
Just sitting there going, could it be Nymeria? But then it wasn't. So no. I guess we still don't know what happens to Nymeria. Well, you do if you've read the books, but we as of right now we don't know what happened to Nymeria.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a letdown. We were kind of hoping we get to see her.
But no.
Oh well. You know,
As
what
far
else?
as we know, I'm just going to believe she's still alive out there.
Somewhere. What else happened in this chapter? Arya killed a rabbit.
Yep. She got a whole leg, and she shared it with Gendry.
She did share it with
Hmm.
Gendry. Does Arya maybe like him a little bit?
Maybe. They did talk about how good-looking Robert was
When he was
when he was younger, so...
big, tall, strong,
Thor,
dark-haired, blue-eyed, Baratheon boy.
big warhammer.
Big warhammer.
The Thor of Westeros.
The Thor of Westeros.
But yeah.
That's kind of hard to resist.
Well, that's pretty much all that happened.
Yeah,
It was a
not
short
really
chapter.
much.
We were just kind of catching up with everything. Everyone kind of... I think we saw the aftermath of the previous chapter, basically. Everyone kind of has let
Running
their guard
away.
down and realized, well, we gotta work together. We're not enemies here because there's people trying to kill us.
Yep.
And
So we-
especially now that they're walking into enemy lines.
Yeah, because we definitely know that who are the ones burning and raping and torching everything to the ground out there in the Riverlands?
The Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Lannisters.
The Lannisters.
And
The other two. There's two groups. There's
Yeah.
the Mountain and then the other two groups of guys, and I can't think of what their names are. But it's like 3 raiding parties just destroying the Riverlands all over the place.
exactly.
Thanks a lot, Papa Lannister. It's kind of a cold move. That scorched earth policy. That sucks.
But a viable tactic.
But
Works.
effective. It does work. Just sucks. But yeah, it works. You don't do it for no reason. Papa Lannister knows exactly what he's doing when he lets the Mountain out.
That's just war. It's who can endure more suck before the other one gives up.
I'm guessing Papa Lannister can endure and inflict a lot of suck.
Okay. Well, there's that opinion.
I'm going to totally switch gears now.
Thank you.
And won't talk about the suckage factor anymore. Next chapter is very exciting.
Oh, yeah, you told me.
Because
We get a new character.
we get a new character's perspective.
And this character is going to stay. It's not like the beginning chapter where we just get one.
No, it's not like the prologue where it's a one and done. We're getting this character's perspective, and it's gonna be around for a hot minute. Hot pie minute.
Hopefully till the end.
I would,
Fingers crossed for this character.
well, most of them.
Yeah. The Onion Knight himself.
Sir Davos Seaworth.
The Smuggler Extreme.
So let's see what Davos is up to. And potentially through Davos, we'll see what Stannis is up to.
Is he still as mopey as ever?
Is he the Batman of Westeros? We will find out.
You gotta be rich to be Batman.
Stannis has got money.
Man lives on an island in the middle of the sea with literally no lands for income.
Is that his fault?
No, but he's not rich.
He's got to be. He's hired sellswords and whatever else. I'm sure Melisandre doesn't.
Yeah, you think that is cheap?
I know, but he had to get the money somewhere, didn't he?
Yeah, and now it's gone. Motherfucker's broke.